We started out around
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. This is season 2, episode 13 of the P.W.P sessions. I am your host, Noelle Figueroa. I thank you all so much for joining me this evening on the final episode of 2022. I'm honored and grateful to connect with Thomas Fucaloro for conversation about his work and poetry background. But before we get into that, I'm going to do a brief introduction. So as stated, this is season 2, episode 13. And for those not already familiar with this podcast, the P.W.P sessions, or the Poets for Purpose sessions, is a podcast that I created where I interview new or established authors of poetry. And in addition, I also interview rappers or MCs. I feature a performance of their work along with an audience Q&A session. I am your host, Noelle Figueroa. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I am the creator of the P.W.P sessions. Now, tonight's guest is Thomas Fucaloro, and this is his bio. The winner of a performance grant from the Staten Island Council of the Arts and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, Thomas Fucaloro has been on 6 national slam teams. He holds an MFA in creative writing from the New School and is a co-founding editor of Great Weather for Media and NYSAI Press. He is an adjunct professor at Wagner College and BMCC, where he teaches word lit and advanced creative writing. Thomas has released 2 full lengths, It Starts from the Belly and Blooms, and Inheriting Craziness is a Soft Halo of Light by 3 Rooms Press. He also has 3 chapbooks, Mistakes Disguised as Stars by Tiered Hearts Press, Depression Cupcakes by Yes Poetry, and There Is Always Tomorrow by Mad Gleam Press. His new chapbook is The Only Gardening I Do Is When I Give Up, which is by Finishing Line Press. And I want to give a shout out to Shani A. Mitchell, who is the photographer of the photo used for Thomas's bio. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Mr. Thomas Fucaloro. Hey, Thomas, good evening. How you doing today?
Good evening. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad to have you on my show tonight. Thank you for being my guest.
How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start off with a basic question that I ask all my guests. Who is Thomas Fucaloro? How would you describe yourself or define yourself?
Oh, wow. That's a big way to start off. I would say, how would I describe myself? Furry and round, a bit unfocused, but I think creative. Someone who cares or thinks they care in their own way. I don't know, so many other things. Anxious should be in there. Flawed, yeah, all of that. Care Bears, just a lot of different things. I think that's where my head is right now in those worlds.
Right. Now, all poets get their start, in different ways. What got you started into poetry?
I think for me, I think it started when, I don't know about you, 'cause I know you're a poet yourself and you write. Like when I'm younger and I was just writing song lyrics, just pretending I had like my own band just in my notebook, writing lyrics. And, you realize, that those words that you're putting down have a melody, they're doing things. And then when you don't have a real, like those lyrics just turn, you don't have a band or anything to back them up. You just start learning how to kind of like be, your own musician in writing and arranging something that's musical, but also requires the utmost of the poet. So I think it started there. And then I went to the College of Staten Island and I discovered E. Cummings, and that kind of changed how I saw what you can do on a page and how you can make that sound, as well as, when you're not in the room reading it. So yeah, there you go.
Excellent, excellent. Now, do you recall like what were the very first subjects that you tackled with your poetry when you first started out writing?
I think like teenage angst stuff, and I probably still do that to a degree. I think the in the beginning you're writing the typical somber stuff, but I also think I loved George Carlin even at an early age, and somehow there's a poetry I feel in his work and how he performs and the melody that he has, and also the how prolific the material is. So I think there was a lot of stuff I was attempting to do with satire and stuff like that. Poorly, but I think those were. I think I was coming from a very general place when it came to writing in the beginning. When it came to topics, I think now I come from a much more personal place. I could do many different poems about many different parts of myself instead of like just a generalization of myself.
Right, right. Now, as poets, we're motivated by different things, in order to, sustain ourselves as writers, in order to, continue to maintain our passion. Like, what would you say is your motivation to be a poet? Like, what motivates you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few things. I think now it really is. It's something that, and I know you do a lot of different things. I've been doing a lot of different things around the New York City poetry scene for a very long time, and the motivation of just being a part of all that's one thing that's just great, like being able to host something and then read it something else and then to maybe publish something, like having all these different avenues of expression, and also being able to provide platforms. That's a really great and unique thing, and that's one thing that keeps me motivated. On a personal level, I think I'm someone who dealing in recovery, and poetry I think really became like an addiction for me when I was battling through some demons. And it's something that's always a constant. It's always on the schedule. It's always on the calendar. So I think that my addictive behavior to something became this, which I like. I'm sure and when I mentioned when you asked to describe yourself and I said unfocused, it's because I feel like I try to do too many things where I should just focus on one thing. But my brain doesn't work that way. So yes.
Right, right. Well, we all definitely, we all have a different approach to, how we write and what inspires us. And if I'm not mistaken, we connected online a few months back. I believe you were hosting your own event, and I think I was one of the poets that participated in the open mic portion, if I'm not mistaken.
Um,
It's been a while. It's been a few months, but we may have crossed paths at some point previously online. And I wanted to ask you, like, what is that like for you to have the opportunity to connect with other poets of different backgrounds, different writing styles, different forms, different styles? Like, how has that helped you with your own writing as a poet?
I think tremendously. I think anything that I've been a part of um, has always been an opposite. Like when I went to the new school, which I met a whole bunch of poets in that world who were more of like page poets, or they consider the New York City School of Poets, like Frank O'Hara, and like I'm that world. And when I went there, I was so into slam, which was like such another thing. And everyone there hated slam, but without that collision of meeting poets who just see poetry in a completely different way, it's a great filter to go through, because you learn so much, and that's exciting, and that's something that really, like, having that kind of network, and you know going into like a completely performance space, and then like, and those performance poets not really being into page like, I love all those kinds of contradictions, and learning from those things, and the only way through that is like this. I sound so hippie-ish, like, oh, this prism of the golden scene, but it is like that. There's
Mhm.
all these different things, like what you're doing, things that I've done, things I'm sure other people out there are doing, and how those things intersect. That's what's exciting about that whole network or community, or being a part of it, or trying to somehow contribute to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I certainly agree that, as they say, variety is the spice of life, but it's more so than that. It's like, being being able to interact with a variety of different kinds of poets, of different styles of poetry and what have you. I think it helps to give balance to the poetry scene overall. It helps to add to its vibrancy and energy. And because it's always something different, it's always something learned, to always new perspectives to take in, and new ideas and visions, to take on. So it's always something to look forward to. It's always fresh and exciting, and it proves the relevancy of the craft. And which leads me to my next question. Is there anything in particular, like any person or book, or anything of that nature, that you would give credit to in terms of helping you to develop your skills as a writer and a poet?
Wow. I would say, I mean, so many, I just mentioned George Carlin, in I would say definitely my poetic voice, and how I maybe use the timbre of my voice. I definitely think I owe a lot to that. I think beat poets, um, um, or thinking about like Walt Whitman or that kind of world. Then also thinking about poets like that I aspire to be like, poets like Solmaz Sharif or Ocean Vuong. So there are lots there, that I try to draw upon. I think um, an influence has been, whether for good or bad, Bukowski, just because of how raw of a nerve he was willing to pick at. And there's something that I really like about that in terms of poetry. But I also understand the problematic nature around someone like that as well. Yeah, so those are a handful, some.
Awesome. Now take me back to the point where you made the decision that, hey, you know what, I have material I need to get out. I want to put a book together. What was that journey like for you from deciding which poems that you wanted to use for a book to the time you actually got your first book published? Like, what was that process like for you?
So my first book, that being published, was just wild, and it was just the time that it was around 2010. So that's about what, like 12 years ago, I want to say. And I was a much different person then. I was just coming out of recovery and, restarting my life. So it was easy to put together. It felt great at the time, but there's a lot that I would change about it because it had there are points that are just like, I mentioned Bukowski or maybe the writers that I was into then. I feel like some of their ooze, and I can't blame it on them, but I think there were some sexist or misogynist undertones in some of like my breakup poems or something like that. Nothing violent or anything, but that's something that I think I don't like about my first collection. Not saying that it's all like that. That's something that bothers me. But having it done, and that process was still a rewarding process. But there are a couple of poems I would definitely pull out of there and just be like, idiot.
Mm. I hear it. And it's like that sometimes, at the time you write it, you might think, okay, great. But then looking back, situations like that might happen. And you could take that as a learning experience for one, but at the same time, it could also be a sense of, hey, that's where I was at that particular time in my life. I've grown from that, so it's like many facets to that, you don't, you might regret certain things you've written, but at the same time, you don't want to completely knock yourself because that was a particular point in time where you had to make certain statements, based upon, whatever you might have been experiencing at that particular moment of your life, all things considered. But at any rate, you once that book was done, in spite of those sentiments, like going back to that time, like once the book was done, like what was that feeling like to get that book finished? Well, how did you feel when it was all done?
It was great. I was excited about it. It made me feel excited about that starting over aspect, that just I was starting my life over, and this was a kind of like a testament of, kind of like what my new chapbook is like a testament of I survived this thing, and here's a document of it. And now, can I be a better person from this book on? So, but there was a really good feeling, like, it's your first, it's your first book, whatever. And Three Rooms Press is a really cool indie press, and they do a lot of really great underground work. I think they're doing some really important work now too. So just having that connection was exciting. It was definitely exciting.
Awesome. And what was the reception to that first project? Like, what were people's reactions toward it?
I think they were good. I think they were good for that time. I don't think I found. I guess our voice is always evolving. I wish I would have waited a little longer, but the reception was good. It felt good enough for me to do another one. So and to keep putting things out into the world. So so I feel good about it.
Awesome. Now that first project was published by a small press. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would that be classified as such?
Three Rooms Press.
And what was that experience like for you, working with them to get this project completed?
It was a pretty painless process. They were very um, they didn't put up like much, like they helped me out with grammar and stuff like that, and like formatting things, how something will fit in it. But they didn't push anything content wise. They trusted me. I've done two things with them, um, and that's good, and that feels good as a writer, that they understand, because I think that's something that's very difficult for me, is getting it right on the page, because I'm so dependent on, I hear the melody first, but sometimes that melody doesn't transcribe to the page how I want it to, especially when it's someone else's eyes. So, but they gave me freedom, and that was good. So it was a good experience.
Awesome, awesome. Now I want to take a few minutes to talk about your latest project. The only gardening I do is when I give up, which I just recently received my copy. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Very, very interesting title. And I did start reading some of the poetry, and I found, like, from the poems that I read so far, the poems seem to be, I don't know if sarcastic is the right description, but they seem, some may have seemed somewhat sarcastic, maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek, or maybe blunt. Like, can you share, like, what was the inspiration by this project, and like the inspiration for the title? Like, what was this project all about?
Yeah, so I think, so how the project started was I am a big George Carlin fan, and he has this long list poem called "Join the Book Club," and he lists off about 70 uh, uh, titles of made up books, and I wrote a poem for each one of those titles, and I took about like 30 of those poems, and I put this chapbook manuscript together. It was about the time of COVID, a little pre, during, and then after. I was going through a lot of stuff with my partner, or my ex, I should say, my mom. I think we were all going through things at the time of COVID. So work, trying to stay afloat, all of that stuff was there. And somehow I just grabbed these 30 poems that felt representative of that chaos of that time period, and put them all into this book. And it's very anxious. I say George Carlin, they have nothing to do with George Carlin. Yes, there is some humor there in certain parts, but there's a lot of, I'm not the hero here. The first poem starts off very positive, but then it's like all downhill from there. It's just very, just feeling very trapped in all these things, regardless of responsibility or not, just feeling trapped at a certain point in my life, and just having a document of that.
Right, right. So would I be correct in saying that, with this particular project, you were being somewhat vulnerable with the emotions that you were dealing with at that particular time?
I think so. Yes. Yeah. I think definitely picking at a nerve about what I was feeling at that time, and really making sure to hold some of that responsibility and not just pass it off.
Mhm. And do you feel a sense with this project? Did you feel a sense of release, in the sense that you were able to express exactly how you felt, unfiltered and unashamed?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel that, and I just feel that also creatively. Besides that whole aspect of it, I also think creatively, the structure of the poems, how concise, I'm very used to writing, maybe things are a bit longer. Here, I feel like I was able to find something that was a little bit, finding a new way of finding the page, which was exciting to me. So that creative part of it has been really, yeah, it's been great.
Well, it's definitely a great project. I look forward to continuing diving into it. It's definitely, I find it to be, a little raw, and some might perceive it to be in your face, but at the same time, that's not in a negative connotation. Just to be clear, I thought it was, I found it to be full of raw emotion, very honest, and very transparent. And those are key that I feel in order to be able to grab an audience's attention, because I think people gravitate to us poets when we're free to be ourselves and free to say what we feel we need to say, on any given subject. So I definitely gravitated to your work in that regard, and I look forward to diving into it further, because I think sharing those kind of perspectives are important, and I'm happy to see that you were able to get this finished and to be able to share, your emotion in that regard, because you never know who you're impacting. The thoughts that you gathered together in this particular project, somebody could be feeling the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you never know who you may be connecting with, when you put your work out there. So, I applaud your achievement, congratulations. And I'm sure, like myself, everybody I'm sure there will be others that will have the same sentiment, that, they will find your work, very, 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 very emotional and thought-provoking. So I applaud you for being transparent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for those kind words and sentiments.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Now, when it comes to your poetry overall, are there certain subjects that you feel you gravitate to more than others, or are you the type of poet that just writes what you feel?
I think I write what I feel, but I think lately I've been in a rut of writing a lot about anxiety and recovery, and like I think I'm writing too many Thomas poems, if that makes sense. Tonight the poems I'm going to share are very much about my mom, because I'm going through something really right now, health wise with her, that's intense, and some intense decisions are going to have to be made. But I can't right now. I've been writing a lot of mom poems. I've been in a specific headspace, I think, for a couple of years, writing about, I think, those topics quite a lot, many different ways of coming at it. I think different creative ways, and there are other things in those poems too. I don't think a poem is just one thing. I think it touches upon different themes. It may have the same overarching theme, but be able to still give you a different subtext. But I'm trying to break out of that. That's like my next. I'm hoping to find a way of finding new. I think I have been writing about myself way too much, and I need to get beyond that, or find a way of writing about myself when it's not directly saying it's about me. And I think that can get tricky as well. Yeah. So yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Definitely understandable. Now, you've heard the word representation, thrown around in different circles from time to time. Now, when it comes to your work specifically, how important is it to you to make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality through your writing? Whether it's talking about, whether it's pertaining to, your life experiences, culture, manhood, all the things that make you who you are. How important is it to you that when you're writing that you're representing yourself in your totality, that you're making sure that when you write, you feel seen through your writing?
Well, I mean, that's for me. So, and I think that's my problem when it comes to my writing is I'm writing too much and I'm not taking the time to edit enough and refine. So you're getting way too much of me, I think. So I think I am giving that. But I'd like to find a way of withdrawing a lot of that or way. Um, but when you mention things like manhood and stuff like that, um, I think I should be and continue to try to also process through that and unravel that and be better from that. Yeah, so there's those things as well.
Awesome, awesome. So with that, I believe that provides a perfect segue to our next segment. Now it's time for you, Sir Thomas, to take the mic. So at this time, you can share up to 5 poems of your choosing to give our audience an idea of your writing style and subject matter. So at this time, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna start with some mom poems. It's just because where my head is at right now. Again, I thank you for letting me able to read some poems here tonight. This poem is about how I enter a room. I'm from ketchup sandwiches and cigarette smoke, pajama bottoms and broken insults, beer can teeth and 3-limbed Care Bears. You could feel the broken on my one-socked feet. Dear barstool table, I won't know you for another 15 years, but I understand how it feels to always have something stuck to the base of you that has been in somebody else's mouth. Dear George Carlin, my mother introduced me to you at a very young age. You showed me that God was too slow in proving it was real, but you also made me laugh too. My mother was quite the comedian herself. When I was 3 years old, my mother drove her beige Chrysler like some sort of 80s midlife missile crisis and parked it on the lawn of the house where my father was having an affair and just left it there. I think this is how I approach most of my poetry. How do you create space without taking up too much space, like the Chrysler, like this poem, like my beard? I am from my mother, smoked cigarettes while I was in her tummy. God was a matter of fact, a matter of lungs, digested. My poems, they laugh at me. I have now become the comedian. Dear God, why is your light always laughing at me? I am from C-section and needs more oxygen. How we open up depends on the arch of our backs and the blade. When they opened my mother up, they found me. I have my mother's smile and she has the scar to prove it. All right. Okay, so I am going to keep going. I apologize that I'm yelling at the screen. But whew. So I'm gonna go into some more mom poems, and this is a 2-parter. And this is in years, 2 different years. This poem's a little more challenging. 2021. Right away, my mom's neurologist gets defensive. I'm not to blame for your mother's condition. No one is blaming you. Just some of her meds are reacting with, it's not me. I am not to blame. It's strange how this system of taking care of one another becomes a system of denial. How lawsuits dictate care and rules and regulations seem to protect those not in care. These last 2 years, I have watched my mother passed off referral after referral of we can't help you, but if you pay what insurance cannot, we will make her as comfortable as your wallet will open. I hate ranting poetry. I hate poetry that rants and rambles, offering no real solution, nothing that will change the cause for the better. And spring turns into a plumage of gray and torn feathers, and spring turns into a pharmacy of milligram diagnosis torn and gray. I find myself like my mother's neurologist, taking no responsibility, just blaming it all on you. It's not me, it's you. It's always been you who takes what need not be held but released, rambling, ranting, like my mother, like bad poetry. 2022. Chasing ghosts. My mother is a small town dance that could never find her footing as she fluttered through wonder, a monsoon of gulps and Parkinson's, diagnosis, more pills, a mission of hope, more pills, a diagnosis. Every time I write a poem about my mother, I go right for her mental health. It's my default. I have blamed my mom's mental health for so long. It is a staple of my poetry. I've been chasing ghosts, listening to pen clicks like drum patterns of forms, filling out numb. You become the numb you never thought you would grow up to be. More pills. I have watched my mother walk through fire unscathed and still there for me. When they said we should put her in long-term care, I started thinking about all my poetry, chasing ghosts, and I watched my mother walk through fire again, but I still filled out those forms. Only later were we informed that she didn't really have Parkinson's, a misdiagnosis. It was actually the Parkinson's meds that were making my mom off balance. They were treating her for something she didn't have. I have been blaming ghosts for so long that I forgot to check mine, to check in with my mother. I am a torn down dance, kind of like my mother. We've been dance partners for so long, floating. Oh, wow. I hate that poem, but I had to read it. So, okay. So, alrighty. Whew. All right, so I am going to go for, I just think one more poem, because these poems are kind of long. I think I am going to. Yeah, I'm gonna. Let's see. Oh Lord, it's so hard to figure out what you want to do. No, I'm gonna do this. Man says a dishonest ghost haunted his house. Man claims ghost's name was Kevin. What we allow to enter us is never the same as what we allow to sit next to us. The ghost made me do it. The ghost made me do it. Sometimes the exorcism doesn't work. You stay the prodding probe of anything that can fit. You say there was no consent when Kevin haunted your body, blaming the past for the manipulation of your present. Say something real, something cinder-like. There is always something inside that guides what we do, that helps us cope when apparitions, apathy, moral cores. When we hurt each other, our ghosts need to blame us as much as we need to blame them. We all are a haunting. We all are a hurting. We all are a healing. We all have ghosts. All right. That's a lot of yelling poems at you. Thank you for allowing me to do that in your direction.
Wow. Wow. First of all those poems are straight fire, without question. And that second poem, that line where you was like, I've been chasing ghosts for so long that I forgot to check mine. I mean, Jesus. I mean, the imagery and the emotion in all of these poems, bro, is just outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the pure fire poetics of Mr. Thomas Fucaloro. Awesome poetry, man. Awesome poetry. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so
That
much.
was lit. That was lit. Now, at this time, we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to do a little shift, and now we're going to shift into our audience Q&A session. So at this time, if there's anyone on the line right now that would like to share a question or a comment for Thomas, you can unmute yourself and do so at this time. Well, maybe I need to take the lead. That's okay. It's okay. I can do that. Not a problem. Not a problem. Taking all of your work into consideration, what would you hope to accomplish with your work?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I think just getting better. As someone once said to me, I'm a better poet than I am person. So having maybe writing through some of that and hopefully having that balance out a little. So I think hopefully becoming a better person through that. In terms of something external, just being able to do this, to be able to be able to share, I'm yelling at my laptop screen, and just to have some sort of reaction or feeling or response to it is something that's important for my development. So this is accomplishment enough, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up for sure.
I have a question.
Amira, how you doing?
I'm okay. I came in a little bit late, but I was able to hear, I think, two pieces that you performed or that you share with us. So I'm getting that you're inspired by some life bending events surrounding your mom. And so you're getting inspiration for your poems from those things that have happened. Is that most of your work, or is that what fuels a certain time period and these poems come from that?
Yeah, so right now I've been writing tons of mom, but like my mom, I think has always been in my poetic vocabulary, so to speak. In anything in anything that I've written in the past, but because of present circumstances of things that are happening in my life and with my mom's health, I can't. It's all I've been writing. To tell you the truth, I've been having problems getting out of that space, which is, I think, too, in a therapeutic sense, it's great to be able to write through that, but maybe in a creative sense, there's some sort of stunted growth there where I need to. I think we were talking about this before, Noel, to expand out of that. Maybe something would, I don't know. Yeah, so that's the answer I have. I'm sorry.
No,
Awesome.
don't be sorry. I mean, that's energy. And so you grab that while you can, and you just mark time and milestones, and it is therapeutic. So we got to use it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your kindness.
Most definitely, I agree. Thanks for those questions, Amira. Glad to connect with you again. In the chat, L iPhone says, Thomas is a boss. Are these poems getting more difficult to recite with life start getting more real?
Are they getting more difficult to recite as life? I don't know. I think they're getting more necessary to recite as life's dark is getting real, regardless of where that reciting happens, whether it's again in this medium or just alone in your kitchen, or like, I think some sort of creative expression is important. So I hope it's not getting more. For me, it's not getting. It seems to fuel it a little more. For me, I don't know if that's twisted or not, but it keeps me going.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Thanks for that question, L iPhone. Any other questions or comments from our audience? Well, I definitely have one I want to ask for sure. If you could collaborate with any poet, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
Oh wow! Holy cow. I think E. Cummings. I love what happens. It's something that I wish my brain understood more of, how to make the space that he makes on the page. There's definitely something, and I'm not saying that I'm not even a copy of a copy of a copy of E. Like, I don't know how to uh but there's just some other way that he thinks of the page uh that really just inspires me. It's like a really exciting thing to see. So yeah, so I would say him.
Awesome, awesome. All right. I see L David just popped in. L David, did you want to share a question or a comment before we close out?
Oh, it's been El Davido this whole time. Hello.
Oh yeah. Oh hey. That's what's up. That's what's up. All right, awesome. Well, awesome questions, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for that. Before we close out, are there any other projects or events that you've got in the pipeline that you would like to share with our audience?
Oh yeah, I definitely, I just did this series called Creating Space. It was a poetry workshop series. It was once a month for 6 months, and it had everyone from Peggy Robles Alvarado to Advocate of Words to Jive Poetic, facilitating poetry workshops for free and online, and it was great. It was a great experience, and I'm in the process of getting a grant for a season 2 of that. Get some other people in the poetry world, though, people who are just masters at not only writing but teaching or facilitating something, and trying to get a whole like 12-month thing of that going, and that'll be free as well. Um, um, so that's something that's going to happen. I'm hoping early 2023, that I'm extremely excited about. And the only other thing is I work for a press called Great Weather for Media, and we're accepting poetry and prose submissions till January 15th. So if you want to check that out, greatweatherformedia.com.
Oh, awesome. And where can you be found on social media, and where can your books be purchased?
Yeah, you could just find me. I'll put in the chat Thomas Fucaloro at Instagram. And then you could check Finishing Line Press if you want to order. The only gardening I do is when I give up. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, I'm quite sure everyone can agree that this evening was lit with some dope poetics, and I do thank you for coming through, for sharing.
Thank you so much for providing this platform and space, and thank you all so much for being here.
Awesome. So as I close out, just want to do one more thing, which I find to be very important, and that is to make sure I say thank you. Once again, Thomas Fucaloro, thank you for gracing my virtual stage with your awesome poetry. Very powerful, very inspiring, very thought-provoking. I was blessed, and I'm sure our viewers tonight and those that view this YouTube video will certainly be blessed just the same. Thank you so much for coming through. This is, in fact, the last episode of 2022. The P.W.P sessions, along with Poets with Purpose, will be taking a holiday break for the month of December. So I want to thank every one of my guests for season 2 thus far. I want to thank my audience, all those that have supported Poets with Purpose and the P.W.P sessions. Thank you all so much for your support, your comments, your motivation, your encouragement. All of that and then some is, as always, is greatly appreciated. You can connect with Poets with Purpose and the P.W.P sessions in the interim on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. For more information about Poets with Purpose or the P.W.P sessions, you can call me at 646-372-6230 or email me at poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. Just note, the Facebook group will still be active during my break. So if you have any events that you would like to post, or anything poetry related you would like to post, feel free to do so. Continue to network, continue to share your poetry. The group will still be active in the interim. For those of you interested in making a donation, you can do so through PayPal, Tap Media Man, Cash App, $the Anointed Pen, $Anointed Pen, or through Zelle utilizing my phone number. This episode will be uploaded to the Poets with Purpose YouTube channel within the next hour or so. So be on the lookout for that, so you'll be able to freely share it with your social media networks. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap of season 2, episode 13. Thank you, Thomas, for coming through. Big thank you to my audience. Thank you all so much for your support. Very much appreciated. I wish you all a good night and have a great rest of the year. Good night and God bless. Thank you.
Night all. Be safe.
You too. Thank you.